Welcome to Getting Granular, the podcast where digital marketing experts from the agency Granular talk about the latest trends, tried and true best practices, and share their unfiltered thoughts about the industry. Whether you're here to learn how to grow your business, improve your digital skills, or just want to hear some Midwest PPC experts rant about digital media, you've come to the right place.
Welcome to the Getting Granular podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kroll. I'm the vice president at the agency Granular. Today, I'm joined by Nate Arkush, co-founder at FreshFin Poke, and we're going to dive right into his business and the role that digital marketing plays in growing their restaurant. So I've got Nate Arkush here with me. Thanks, man, for coming in to chat. So I guess before we get into it, can you just tell me, what you do, the company that you started, and just talk about that a little bit?
Awesome. So yeah, we started in early 2017 is when we opened our first location. So FreshFin Poke. So we have 4 locations now that we operate, and a fifth in Fiserv Forum. We started on the east side of Milwaukee in totally cold weather in January 2017, and it quickly grew. We opened our second location right outside you guys here in the third ward, and about 10 months later, it was really small, efficient operation. And then we've now recently opened up a couple locations in Brookfield and Madison. So yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great fast casual concept. We're really into whole clean ingredients. Everything is basically made in house, so we're handcrafting sauces every day, and using just clean whole ingredients for all of that, rather than purchasing, which some of the other fast casual concepts are built for that. So we're built a little bit more on that craft focus and that handcrafted element. So we're very excited about how the community has responded since we started, and there's been a lot of support, and we're very glad to be kind of making a footprint in Milwaukee. So yeah, we ended up, my background has been kind of all restaurants and hospitality since I was 15. I started bussing tables and washing dishes at a local fine dining Italian restaurant. Went to culinary school after high school. Finished a bachelor's at UNLV in Vegas, and went with Starwood, moved into a position with Starwood, and kind of did everything at the Sheraton Chicago I could in management. So managed all their restaurants, did some catering management, actually managed a housekeeping department for a couple years, and also was doing large convention account sales there. So I was kind of able to learn more about contracts and negotiating larger deals, which has obviously been a very good element to what we've done with the growth of our company. Something I didn't really realize. Even the housekeeping experience, I say all the time, was probably the best experience I could have ever had to kind of prepare for what we do with this.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment and observation. And obviously, myself and everyone here at Granular, we love FreshFin. I think it was our colleague Ian. He's the one who introduced it to me prior to you guys even opening here. And when we came here, you're like, oh yeah, we know Ian, and he comes in. And something that's always stood out as we've gotten to know each other more, and I eat there 2-3 times a week at the location right outside in our lobby, is whenever I see you, you always make it a point to say, hey, how's the food? How are wait times? How's everything kind of front of house with customer service, which I think that's pretty neat. I mean, I'm just kind of surprised that question doesn't get asked more with, different, restaurant owners that I meet with. And I feel like you should want that feedback, but I don't know how many people are actually doing that.
Yeah, and for us, it's an opportunity to kind of like, we obviously we have a network of customers. That's a very large network, but I may only know by person 2% of those people. So when I have the opportunity to chat with them and somebody who's regular, I like to ask that question, and I always take it. I know that sometimes people might be holding back because they're worried about offending the owner or the manager, but to me, it's about just understanding what the experience is, because we recognize in the hospitality industry, and pretty much any industry, the goal as an owner or manager is that you hope that 99% of the transactions, quote unquote, go well. But there's going to be that 1%, 2%, 3% that might not be exactly what you're looking for. And, we just want to be aware of it. Like, I don't I understand, and we try to train this with our team as far as like, empowerment when something doesn't go correctly. Like, we understand not 100% of the things are going to go correctly, but as long as we understand that and are kind of in touch with our customer and have the ability to make it right, that's when we can win those customers back. So that's something that I typically do ask almost anybody I see in store, or, my wife's friends, for example, would say, "Oh, I've been to FreshFin, I love it." I typically always ask, "Hey, how was the experience?" Just because you know, reviews are nice. Getting feedback from customers via email is helpful, but you also understand that probably 90% of people with a good or bad experience you're not going to hear from. So that's just important to us to really keep a pulse on our service levels.
Something I'm curious about. I've never got the full story. Is I've met you, I've met James, I've got bits and pieces of the origin story, but I definitely want to get into in this conversation the role that website plays. What does marketing look like as a restaurant owner in 2019? But I guess just the genesis for, all right, you create FreshFin, Poke isn't really a thing in Milwaukee to the extent that it is now. Like, how do you get the idea?
Yeah, so again, I was in Chicago for 10 years and came up to Milwaukee with my wife, and we knew that we wanted to open up something. So, one of my best childhood buddies, James, and I pulled together, some of our money, kind of pretty much my entire savings from working corporate for 10 years, and basically started to look at what we wanted to do, and we kind of narrowed it down to, okay, we have a couple choices. We could go full service and invest 750 grand into a large restaurant and get all the bells and whistles, or we can go super lean and efficient and see how this thing goes. And we decided fast casual is the route we wanted to go, and I designed a menu for a burger concept actually at the time, and was doing tastings and kind of had everything narrowed down in that. And, James called me one day and said, no, you got to come out to, he's actually on the West Coast. And he said, you got to come out and check out what's happening with Poke. And it was very eye opening. I hopped a flight out to LA and checked out, about a dozen places in kind of an R&D trip. And at the first one, absolutely fell in love and said, this is what we're going to do. Because we really felt that it kind of checked all the categories from a entrepreneur's standpoint, as far as like being able to open up in a lean operation, relatively low labor, even though that's been, because we're doing handcrafted, our labor costs are on the higher side because everything is handcrafted, cut fresh daily, all that. But we've still been able to be efficient as far as, the leases we're doing and the build outs we're doing. And then from a customer side, I felt like as a customer experiencing for the first time, it was healthy, it was customizable, it was bigger portions than sushi, it was affordable, and as long as we could kind of get that last part, which was, making the flavors great and making it as tasty as possible while still delivering a healthy, whole ingredient, clean, raw ingredient bowl, we felt like it had a very high chance of differentiation in the market in Milwaukee, especially since nobody had done it at that time. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess just diving into some of the getting the word out, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you tried that worked, probably a lot more stuff that didn't work. Like, all right, you've been a real stickler for the quality of the food, the service, the portions, but you start the business, you still need to get the word out. I'm sure there's everything from people telling you to discount, to not discount, to you need a website. Do you need a website? All these food delivery services. Like, what, I guess, was that process like, ebbing and flowing, learning what worked and what didn't?
yeah. So our other partner, Heather, handles all of our marketing. She does a phenomenal job. She actually does it remotely because she's not in Milwaukee. But she really gave us that kickstart in the beginning with her focus on social media and website. So we were kind of lucky enough to have a good kind of wind beneath our back when we first started, because it was this new concept to Milwaukee, which really helped us kind of build. I remember we were so excited when we got like our our 200th follower on on Facebook and Instagram, and now, she's built that into, I think we're close to 4,500 or 5,000 on Facebook, and I think we're well above. I think we're close to 10,000 on Instagram now, and she's done a phenomenal job with that messaging to keep people engaged, and has also done, and our other partner Andrew, who's basically an operating partner with me, joined the company in about the first 6 months and has been just an integral part of, working alongside with Heather as far as like, the cohesive branding as far as like how we're messaging on the website. And I think our website has just each year it's been improved drastically. So there's all those different layers. I know we'll talk a little bit more about the digital side, which kind of brings the customers in. The website is just a huge tool for us to educate our customers on what we are, what we're offering, what differentiates us, where we're sourcing, what our menu is, all that. And then obviously the functionality of ordering online, which is, a bigger element nowadays in the restaurant industry than I ever expected, as far as, using these delivery portals and online portals. We're considering maybe doing an app in the future, to kind of connect with our customer in that way from a technology standpoint, and obviously the social media. Heather again has done just a phenomenal job with keeping our customers engaged. So that's kind of it's almost different tiers of bringing in customers, educating customers through our website, and then keeping them engaged constantly on social media. And that I think is a really difficult part too, is like kind of keeping content, trying to think about what your customers are going to be interested in, and then that kind of rigorous, every day, every 2 days, continuing posting and trying to keep things relevant.
Yeah, you covered a lot of ground there in terms of some of the questions I was going to ask, which is, you've got all these different platforms. You have your website, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have YouTube, all these different channels. How do you use each of them? You've answered a lot of those questions, and I guess Instagram is, is a social platform we've really seen just exploding, and you guys do it really well. So maybe can you talk more about how you're engaging customers, how Heather's engaging customers on that platform?
Yeah, and actually Heather would be, she does such a great job with it. I'm relatively hands off on that, but she's just always looking for new content. So and it is a little bit difficult because she's not here. I think it would be a lot easier if she was in Milwaukee and was able to come into the stores and like literally take pictures of our items. But what she's done a really, really good job in is she has actually used a lot of our kind of the voice of the customer. So when our customers have been posting stuff, which we're lucky and blessed that we have so much interest in that. I think part of it is that we really focus on one of mine and Andrew's big focuses is the presentation of our bowls, so that we kind of train our team that we need to assume that every bowl is coming out is going to be on Instagram. So Heather's really done a good job of taking that feedback and taking those images and kind of using them as a tool for us to communicate out to our to the masses of our other customers. So we're focused a lot on in-store promotions. May it be a holiday promotion, or may it be Tuna Tuesday, where we're giving $2 off for a spicy tuna bowl, if you mention it. But we try to keep our promotions in that sense around like mentioning it when you come into shop, so that we can really track an ROI on how effective are these social media channels when we're doing these types of promotions.
Sweet. Yeah, I guess one of the other questions I have is like, what are some of the things, if you can go back and tell yourself when you started FreshFin, that you've already had the experience and foresight to have invested in and tried that maybe you wouldn't do again from a marketing or sales standpoint?
Well, I mean, we've been pretty lucky, I would say, that any marketing or sales platform or partner that we would start to work with, we put a lot of effort into researching that. I would say that there have been literally thousands of people reaching out trying to sell us marketing products, that we're pretty discerning on that, and we're pretty very, very picky on who we select to do business with, because that's one of the things that we have found, especially from marketing. May it be somebody trying to sell us an app, or trying to, put us in some type of listing. I mean, we've had a lot of people with, more the traditional marketing standpoint, like the paper advertising and stuff like that we've just chosen. That's not the direction we would go. I would say we did test a few things. We tested some radio ads, and we tested some print ads, and we just didn't really feel like we were able to really quantify an actual ROI on that. It was just very difficult to do. And we feel like, especially with our experience with the digital marketing side, especially with Google and Gmail and YouTube, that we've been able to really pinpoint specific ROI and literally tell to the exact amount of people, the amount of new customers that these channels have brought in. So we just feel a little bit more comfortable, both through, just kind of investing our money into more of the digital marketing side. May it be through, boosting Facebook or boosting Instagram, down to more the Google and YouTube ads, where we can really quantify where our dollars are going, and also hone in on a specific demographic. I think that's a little bit more too of where that general, traditional marketing of print and radio, it's very difficult to understand who am I getting this message in front of. And that's one of the things that we find is a huge benefit to the digital side, is that we can pinpoint exactly where it's going.
So yeah, you guys were doing digital ads, by the time you came to us. I know that you were self-critical of maybe how good of a job you guys were doing, but I think you're talking about ROI, getting people in, getting in front of users. So I guess what led to that decision to, hey, let's start running some ads versus just relying purely on word of mouth or some of those other traditional channels?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we obviously know that it's an investment to acquire new customers, but we are confident, based on our service execution and our food quality, that we have a high chance of return customers. So we probably look at it a little bit differently than maybe the standard restaurant out there that may not have as differentiated a product or as high quality of customer value proposition, where some traditionally, where you're looking at, if you're looking at a $8 or $10 customer acquisition, and to a lot of restaurants that may be like, well, if our bowls are $10, it just doesn't make sense. But for us, we look at kind of the lifetime value of a customer, and so we started looking at how we can diversify and get new customers in the door. And we did try Google, and it's funny, we did it in house to kind of originally to kind of test it out. We like to bootstrap almost everything, like as much as we can, and so that we understand what we're working with. And I think that's made us, even though we had a lot of bumps and bruises with the Google along the way, I think it's made us a little bit more educated. We've learned a ton more working, with Granular, and really, I think, come full circle with our digital marketing program. But one of the funny things that I talk about with my partners is when we were doing it in house, we were actually North Avenue store was getting calls on a regular basis from the county jail and Greyhound, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, and we couldn't tell, why are we getting, is this some weird listing, like, are we? And it came down to, obviously we had no affiliation with the county jail or Greyhound on our Google, but it just came down to kind of that specific. I think we didn't have a quotation marks around the word "and," or it wasn't around the word "or," and it was something as small detail like that we were literally, these people were clicking, they were searching for the Greyhound bus in Milwaukee, and somehow FreshFin was coming up on that search. And so not only were we getting the calls, and it was bombarding our team, and we couldn't figure it out for like weeks, but we were also paying for those clicks, which was which was just a learning experience, where it's like, okay, we like to bootstrap stuff, but it doesn't always make it better. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned, kind of growing the business. Like, that first year we bootstrapped almost everything that we could. And it doesn't always come out with the best result at the end. And I think that's goes for tiling your own floor to, we tried doing, all of our books in house, for the first few months. It didn't work out, and had to bring professionals in. And now that we've kind of learned from them, now we're starting to kind of take that back over. And I think that the digital marketing side is the same, where we are now getting a much better actual ROI, and kind of coming full circle now that we have a program that is going to the right demographic. It's not going to that greyhound customer per se. It's going to the exact demographic that we're looking for. And we're seeing a lot more new customers in shop now due to it.
Cool. Yeah, and like we've talked about here, I know you guys are self-critical and beat yourself up over it, but I'm glad to hear that you also can see the silver lining. And hey, we bootstrapped it, we tried it out, and from our standpoint, I think I mentioned, like, hey, gives us data to work with. We know what doesn't work, and it made it much easier when we had that foundation. And I mean, if you wouldn't mind, we talking about it some more in terms of around last year, we started working together with FreshFin and taking a look at how we can take your pay-per-click advertising and digital channels and help you meet your goals. Maybe talk about how that process was like, and how we're looking at the pay-per-click advertising we're doing with us versus when you guys are doing it in-house.
Yeah, and I think what has been the biggest benefit with that, and Jeremy's done a phenomenal job with our account, is kind of looking at, like, what is our end goal, but then there's all these these 10 steps in between. And I think really identifying what is our customer was the most beneficial in finding that, where we've really narrowed down. Like, we have, all right, all these higher level, okay, so we can look at YouTube, which we never thought about before meeting with you guys, especially understanding the value that's along with that, as far as the pay-per-click is just a phenomenal value with that, versus a lot of these other channels. And being exposed to, like, kind of a broader digital marketing presence, where you can be on Waze, and you could be on Google, and you could be on Gmail. But the nice thing that we knew that you could narrow down a demographic before, we just didn't know how to get there. And I think that that's been the most beneficial, is we're finding a much higher ratio of customers actually coming into the shop, because we're hitting that specific demographic for these new customers, and also I think creating a call to action that makes sense and that's cohesive with our brand is incredibly important. Something as large as that was something that we were kind of overlooking in the past. It was just our message wasn't really, it was 75% capturing attention, but it wasn't like really putting it full circle as far as getting that customer in the door. And then the other part that we have found a ton of value in is really being able to track that ROI, send them to our website, get them to sign up for our loyalty program and be a part of our e-newsletter, which then keeps us engaged with them. And then also kind of working with our point of sale to be able to really track the ROI. Those are all the things that we kind of went from, we stepped up our game multiple times by just kind of looking at that cohesive, not just looking at, okay, I think when we were doing it, we were looking at how can we get these customers in the door and get awareness out there, but we weren't coming full circle with all those other elements of really hitting the demographic that we were looking for, looking at multiple digital channels, so that we can get to a wider audience still within the similar budget, and then driving them to our website, driving them to our loyalty program, and ultimately getting them into our shop. And to be honest with you, I mean, these are all things that we knew could happen, but it's when you're running a business, it's and there's all these other things that are happening. It's that organization of getting, it was a 3 or 4 month process for for Jeremy to hound us for a long time to get all those components done. I mean, there's a lot of elements to it, so I think having a firm that understands that's able to be very efficient in that and help us get to that step was just really huge benefit to us, and has really upped our game in that sense.
Sweet. Yeah, selfishly that's awesome to hear, but at the same time it's been really cool seeing how you guys have been able to grow, and just seeing the FreshFin leadership team. You guys now are throwing out acronyms and talking about things that a year ago you wouldn't have been talking about. So that's really cool, just seeing that you guys have more insight and are empowered. And I guess that leads me to a question around, you talked before, you get inundated with tons of people trying to sell you stuff. A lot of these people are credible. They've got good expertise, but you're a business owner. You've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of people coming at you, especially as you're growing. What do you use as kind of your framework for deciding who am I going to trust to work with versus, what are we going to try and hold on to in-house? I know you talked about, the switching the bookkeeping externally, partnering with us here at Granular. I guess we'll focus there. Like, what made you feel comfortable working with us, versus a lot of these other people that you had coming at you?
I think for us it was because it was more relationship based. Off of it, I felt like it wasn't a hard sell. So I think I've learned as an entrepreneur, previous to being an entrepreneur and as an entrepreneur especially, like if somebody's really trying to sell you hard, especially if it's over the phone or they're constantly coming in my mind that's typically because it's a high commission based position, which means that there's probably a lot of there's a lot of reason that there's a lot of margin on the table, and I'm not that's that type of thing, and we get that constantly. I mean, I get it to my emails, to my cell phone, to in shop. I mean, we always have new cashiers that say, "Oh, somebody called for the owner." I say, if they called for the owner, I don't need to answer it because they're trying to sell us something. So for me, it was more of like we were able to develop a relationship, and I think Granular was able to step back and say, like, this is something we could provide value on when the time's right for you guys. You just let us know, and I think that once we had some of those bumps and bruises with our Google ads in particular, we started kind of talking about conversations again, and it just seemed like something that was organic, and it seemed like more of a partnership than a transaction. So that to me was really, really important, specifically to why we are working with Granular for our digital. And I think that we've found that with kind of everybody that we've partnered with. So like the guy that does our website is a good friend of ours, and person who does our branding is a good friend of ours, and kind of Heather has a network of everybody that's kind of on her team, and vendors are people that we trust and aren't trying to just give us a hard sell. And we have found, we've sometimes gone down that route in smaller capacities, where something sounds good, and it's more of that, that sell rather than kind of that organic partnership value proposition. And that's really what we found as the most beneficial to us is our long-term partners, even may it be, general contractors or vendors, that we found that people that like our product, that like us, that we have somewhat of a previous relationship with, those are the partners that we've found to be the most beneficial for us.
Sweet. Yeah, no, that's super helpful. And I guess to that point, and thinking through people who would be listening to this podcast, especially others that can relate a lot to you, restaurant owners, small business owners, I guess what advice would you have as far as if you're looking to dip your toe in the water, get involved with this versus outsourcing it, like what the right approach is to take in terms of you've got to figure out how much am I going to spend on this, how much can I do, how much can I outsource? Like it can be a bit paralyzing, but I guess your team was structured where you had multiple partners, you had resources from people that you could trust, that you could kind of share the load, for maybe some individuals where it's maybe just them solo, like what would you recommend?
So I would recommend just testing, like always testing. If it sounds like it's a good opportunity, try to test it before like diving all the way in. And that's even, that's what we did on Google, and we found that there was value, even though we weren't like 100% full circle on managing it ourselves. I mean, we were more educated and knew that there was value in it when we sat down and talked with you guys about how can we improve this. We were probably a little bit more educated from a client standpoint. And we knew what we liked and what we didn't like, and kind of the direction we wanted to go, even though it wasn't perfect. And I don't think that we had any damage per se from managing it in house. But that's kind of what we look at almost everything. May it be testing a new product out, maybe switching a potential vendor is kind of testing, and it doesn't always work out. I mean, and Andrew and I talk about that constantly, is test, and sometimes you fail. And to be honest with you, I mean, and I joke about this all the time, like probably 7 out of 10 of my ideas are like the worst ideas in the world, and we don't, either Andrew or somebody on our team will look at me and be like, I don't know, but I'll never stop doing that. And I don't mind that. That doesn't, when we toss an idea of mine out, or even if we try it and it doesn't work, I mean, there's constantly, like I had the idea to put the beets on our menu, sous vide roasted beets on our menu, and I was the only one who was into it. And I had a couple vegan team members were like, oh, it's cool. And, I think Andrew was the one like, I don't know. And we tested it, and it was the worst idea ever. Like we sold like 3 in the first month. And so,
Man.
I looked at Andrew and I said, you're totally right. Like, all right, we're going to take it off the menu, but we don't really have many losses in that, right? Like, yeah, we lost some product in beets, and that is what it is. And who knows, beets could have taken us to the promised land. Like you never know. And it could have provided value to, especially a vegan demographic. We found that it didn't. And, that's kind of how we look at things, is like test and, see what works. And there's a lot of things that, we find pretty quickly not the right fit. But once you dive in 100% on something, without really knowing if this is going to be a good fit or not, you're either allocating too much resources to something that may not be a good fit, or you're not able to test more quantity of things. So obviously, typically want to be more quality than quantity, but testing new concepts, testing new ideas, I like to be a little bit more quantity on that, so that we can narrow down, all right, this is a good idea, or this is terrible. I mean, sometimes the ideas that you think are going to be the worst, you test it and you find out it's great. And others, they just don't work out. So, and we go through that constantly. And I think the thing that I personally go through with that a lot is more like testing products and vendors, and trying to keep things as efficient as possible while improving like our supply chain as well.
Sweet. Yeah. So definitely heard testing in there a lot, just having that mindset and just having the courage to do something versus over analyzing, and you're not putting anything out there.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that, I learned actually in business school, from one of my professors. And Andrew and I talk about it a lot. It's almost like the kind of the lean startup model, where if you wait until everything is 100% perfectly lined up to do any type of project, may it be launching a new company, or may it be switching over to a digital marketing firm, whatever it is, or anything in between, if you wait till you're 100% there, you're never going to do it, or you're going to accomplish 10% of what you would. Like we kind of go for like, all right, sounds good. We're 60-70% ready, and let's go. And as long as we're not going to totally flop on it, and we can execute it, like we try to do that, because if you wait till you're 100% ready, you're just going to accomplish less.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess one of the questions I had for you before we wrapped up here is, obviously FreshFin, it was a new endeavor, but went out to the West Coast and got to sample a lot of other restaurants. I'm sure you've gotten to know a lot of restaurants and businesses in your time running FreshFin. What are some of those businesses or organizations that you admire for their marketing or branding or the way that they approach things as far as customer service that you actively think about when you're building and growing FreshFin?
So obviously, like I think with our model, it's no surprise that I've always felt like the leader and king in the last 10 years of the fast casual models, obviously Chipotle. I just have a ton of respect for them. And I think what they've been able to do from a branding standpoint is really connect the customer with that sourcing aspect and kind of showing the customer the differentiation of what makes them different than any of their competitors. May it be, Qdoba, or may it even be if they're competing with McDonald's for that same dollar. And that to me has been very interesting, and we're trying to up our game currently, and have spent the last kind of 6 months really getting more of our sourcing in front of the customer. And because we are buying premium products and, we're spending a lot of money on it, and, we feel like messaging that to the customer and kind of using them as kind of a model to look after. I think they've really been the first in the fast casual market to really capitalize on that. And from a marketing standpoint, also in fast casual, another leader that I have a lot of respect for is even like a Blaze Pizza, where they're not focusing as much on that sourcing aspect, but they've been able to enter new markets rapidly, in the last 5 or 6 years, and they've been able to make a big splash in those markets. And I haven't identified exactly what they're doing properly, but we know firsthand it's very difficult to enter a new market and make a splash. There's a lot of noise, especially in larger markets, and I think for us, just like when we do enter a new market, kind of getting our food out there, doing as many events as we can, getting sampling out, and I don't know exactly what Blaze has done with that, but they've done a phenomenal job at really capturing the attention of the dozens and dozens of new markets that they went to within a 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah, we've talked about Blaze before. Just myself personally, my wife, we're big fans, and it's just one of those experiences when you go there for the first time, similar to FreshFin, where you think, boy, how come someone else hasn't figured this out, and they've got kind of that it factor. I would like to think that a big part of their success doesn't have to do with the fact that LeBron James is an owner and appears in commercials for them. I don't know if
probably didn't hurt. Yeah,
I don't know if any of that's in the
LeBron.
In the works.
LeBron, if you're listening, we're taking on new investors, man.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, we've got our own MVP candidate here in Giannis.
That's true. That would be a great fit. That would be a great fit. If you ever have a chance to talk to him, I would love the opportunity to sit down and talk to him about that.
All right. So if Giannis is listening to this, or anyone from the Bucks, and he's interested in partnering with FreshFin, Nate, the invitation is there
for sure. And the Bucks have actually been great partners to ours. I mean, we're thrilled to be in the Fiserv Forum, and they've done a great job with that. And so, yes, we would love the opportunity if it was ever on the table.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, that's all I had. Before we part, obviously want to give FreshFin another shout out. So freshfinpoke.com on social. The handles are mostly FreshFinPoke, right, on Instagram and Facebook. And you guys are those are the two platforms you guys are most active on with social. Are there other platforms that you direct users to?
Yeah, we're a little bit on Snapchat as well. Obviously, just going to our website. We have great delivery services at almost all of our locations. You can just go to the order online link, so you can pick up in the store if you want to deliver order ahead. So yeah, I mean, we're obviously we have a newsletter where you can sign up for that. So we're there's a lot of opportunities to stay connected with us, and a lot of promotional opportunities out there that we're working with Granular on. And so yeah, come on in, check out the food, and we'd love to see you in.
Cool. We'll sign off on that. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.